from childhood.
Right. So you've been comfortable with animals all your life.
I have, yes.
Oh, that's
And
wonderful.
there was a, let's say, a traumatic experience as a child, um, that had me feel as if people were, uh, let's say, scary or not consistent. As a little kid, you don't know these words, but all I knew is where I felt safe was with animals
Wow. Wow.
and nature. Yeah.
And Barbara, before we go much farther, how do you define what an animal communicator is or an animal intuitive?
Well, first of all, I want to say all of us are intuitive in a body that's ever been born.
Yes, yes.
And and some of us, for whatever reason, whether it be, as I said, my experience as a young person, but what an intuitive is to me is someone who can tune in to a different vibration. Like, for example, we have our everyday life and our routines and our jobs and all that. But then from a different part of the psyche or my brain
Right.
is a part that is tuned in and sensitive to things that are like non-physical or animals, and building a relationship with the unknown, with the intuitive meaning psychic, meaning open to spirit.
Right.
So not everyone needs to take it that far, but it has, let's say, the energy has taken me that far to really get in touch with angels. Uh, Actually, I'm a medium, so this includes animals that have died and come and visit me when I'm on a call with a client. The sense I have is, that their pet shows up, or their horse, their dog, their cat, or even if it's a gerbil, will show up as wanting to let their people know they're okay.
Well, that's great. And is that, I mean, at that point, after death, is that the soul that is contacting or?
Yeah, it is, but it's also there's a carryover of the personality too. For example, like say Buddy the dog, the Doberman, who passed over after he had a heart attack. He was an abused dog that I worked with
Right.
some years ago. And after he died, and I did a check-in with him, basically, he was saying how happy he was and how good it felt to be where he is. And I would call that his soul self. But what he retains for me is the personality of Buddy, not
Mhm.
just a soul
Right.
without a name. He has
Right.
a name.
Yeah. A soul with a name. That's good. Hey, I've always been interested in, and I was thinking about this, how you found your mode to communicate with animals. I mean,
Well,
uh, I think
that
it,
ma-
yeah, pretty amazing, Barbara.
well, that makes me laugh because it really, if it weren't for my cat Athena, that came into my life, well, basically 45 years ago,
Right.
she was my first teacher. And if it weren't for Athena, I probably would have still had my uh, idea about what a cat is, how they shouldn't jump on the kitchen table, how I should, all of the
Yeah.
rules we have about animals, right? But it was soon clear to me after having let's call it a merging experience with Athena, where and I felt this message come from Athena to me. I'm your teacher if you're willing to learn.
Wow.
And she said it with authority. And it's true, I've always been intuitive, but this cat, I've never had this happen in
Right. Right.
and I
Right.
was I was an adult, and I'm like, what?
Yes.
And so she opened me up to the world of animal communication, with me trying to read her after that first initial uh, interaction, I was following her around the house, like, how did I do that? I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
Athena, what are you trying to tell me?
Yes.
Etc. So it was a very wonderful and long journey.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And so she kind of made you feel more comfortable in the mode of expressing yourself with animals?
Yes,
God, so you can always
yes,
have animal helpers too.
that's right.
Uh-huh. So
That's
this is
true.
kind of, I have no real preference between dogs and cats, but who who have you communicated best or most with? What type of animal?
All the same for me.
Okay.
All the same. I just jump in. It feels like I'm jumping into their reality, or they're sharing their reality with me. So it's like I'm dialing up their phone and I'm saying, "Hey, Athena, what do you think? Am I doing okay?" And she would give me this, "Oh, you're doing okay, but you're not great at this yet."
Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. So you would actually kind of just kind of talk to her, but would it be out loud or in your head or
In my head.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and the funny part about it is it's almost as if you can create a relationship with any animal, such as, a whale, a
Yeah,
porpoise,
yeah,
and all you do is basically through intuition, and I call it, what do you call it when you intend for? I'm
but
intending to connect with
yes,
Robbie, the dog. I'm
yes,
intending to connect with, uh, one of my. I have two cats right now. They they kind of get the, oh, she wants to talk to me. Then I get a chance to get. I call it get their experience. Say with Buddy, for example, he was an abused dog, and he was rescued out of the abuse, and but he was still very traumatized. My work with him was to help him feel safe in his body again. And how I do that is I send Reiki energy. Reiki is a hands-on healing technique that I learned 45 years ago, and I'm still doing it.
great.
And that creates a safe space for the animal to go, oh, this one's good. This one's safe. I can talk to her. It's kind of like that.
Okay, okay. So that's really how you initiate the dialogue, which is
Yes.
that's to me is very interesting. So let's say I have a pet
Uh-huh.
and it's a cat and I'm having difficulties with it. It's doing all sorts of things that I think it shouldn't be doing. Um,
Yes.
is that somebody who might contact you as an animal intuitive? Like, why might a pet owner contact you for your help?
Sometimes sometimes they call because their kitty is peeing outside the litter box. Um, uh, they notice that their kitty has less energy, and they want to know, is there something illness going on? And um, is there they suddenly stop sleeping with you, and you don't know why. What's wrong with my
Right,
cat?
right.
Won't sleep
Yeah.
with me anymore. And so then I tune in and connect on a heart to heart, soul to soul level. That's how I call it.
Uh-huh.
And then I get images. So, how I think in pictures and feelings versus, it's not a mental dialogue so much, but it could be. But it also could be like in a dream. You know how it is when in a dream state, you
Yes.
get impressions. So I'll get an impression and then I have to interpret the
Sure.
impression.
Sure.
Like the kitty might say, there's a new person in the house that I don't like,
Oh, yes. Yes.
and they won't pee in there. How can they express themselves except through biting, pooping, peeing, getting sick? They can't speak words, so I have to speak the words for them.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that gives me an idea of who should and who maybe shouldn't be contacting an animal intuitive. And have you
Yes.
ever, speaking of um really encountering and communicating with an animal, have you ever met an animal that just will not communicate with you?
Yes, I had more than one, and but they changed their mind once they got to know me.
Uh-huh.
But I'm thinking of this cat in Connecticut who she took one look at me and she said, "Okay, go ahead, prove yourself." Like, I don't
Right.
even know
Oh
if you can
my.
do anything with me.
Right. Uh-huh. Oh my.
And
And did you?
say what?
Did you? In-
I did. I
Yeah.
did. I said, "Your Royal Highness, allow me to introduce myself."
Oh, that's great. That is great. Yeah.
We became best friends after that.
Oh, that's excellent. So just give us an idea, if you would, of what's been your most unusual experience as an animal communicator?
Well, there are so many. The one that I track into right now, though, is CJ, a horse. And this was many years ago. And CJ was being trained as a dressage horse, which is very regimented. And he hated it. So his owner, well, I didn't know him at all, but his owner kept coming for Reiki treatments and saying what a difficult horse she had. He refused to do dressage. So I went over to the barn to connect with him. And what surprised me was he showed me a picture of himself being about the size of a cat
Yeah.
and being afraid of this human who was making him do stuff he didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And then he showed me a picture of riding in the sunset with a man on his back. He didn't want to ride with a woman. And all of these, and I'm so new at this at that time, I'm like in shock about what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And the turnaround for the whole thing was uh, he, after some, let's say, accidents that he was expressing, I don't want to do this, he
Sure.
finally surrendered and he said, okay, if she wants me to be her whipping boy, I will. and
Yeah.
and the very bottom line of that, and I was so touched, I had tears,
Wow.
like, of his surrender to doing what a human wanted. And then the next thing, when I saw her the next time, I had made this suggestion she sell him through an ad at a big newspaper. She saw me in a restaurant and said, guess what, CJ has his new owner and he's so happy he gets to ride in the sunset.
Wow.
That was
Oh,
beautiful.
that's lovely. Yeah. So there are some good things that come out of animal communication and animal intuitiveness. And I mentioned to
Yeah.
you, I mentioned a story that I'm a skeptic, I have to say, Barbara. And I was just shocked when a friend of mine, I was going over to visit her, and she told me that there was a cat there that belonged to her daughter-in-law, and that they had told the daughter-in-law that I was coming. And the daughter-in-law said, well, she wasn't going to be there, but tell the cat that I'm a friend of the family, because the cat was not interested in communicating with anybody at all except family members. So I was shocked. They told the cat, and honest to God, the cat sat next to me the entire time I was at their house, and she would look at me. The cat would look at me. Her name was Jaeger, as in Jägermeister. And it was like almost, I wasn't a stare down, but I was just absolutely shocked that this cat wanted to keep eye contact the entire time I was there. So that made me a little bit more of a believer. But there's so many things that we don't really pay attention to because we don't understand, like, intuitiveness and communication with anything besides human beings. So I think that, I mean, I don't know if it's my imagination, but do you think that more people are actually trying to communicate with animals?
Oh, absolutely. I go on YouTube all the time and see people rescuing very desperate animals and bringing them back to life from almost near death
Yes,
people are really identifying with this is a being just like me.
right,
And this
exactly.
being needs respect.
Exactly. And look at the joy that being brings to you all the time.
Yes.
And why not have something that's reciprocal? So, if somebody was interested in talking to you, Barbara, how would they contact you?
Well, the easiest way is my website, barbaramariano.com.
And can you spell Mariano?
Sure. Mariano,
Perfect.
barbaramariano.com. And they can go on there and read schedule a 15-minute free session
Oh,
so
okay.
we can get to know each other and see if I can help or not.
Great. And if they intend to continue with you, you explain everything to them and what's
Yeah.
involved. Yeah. Well, this has been really a really interesting interview, and something I have never done before was talking to an animal intuitive. Do you
Oh,
have any final story or anything that you would like to tell us that
I yes, go ahead, dear.
go ahead that
I'm
would-
very, very happy to share with people that animals are um, they're all about love and they're about helping us. They are unconditionally loving, most of them, unless they've been damaged.
right.
And then it's our job to help them. But we have a resource in four-leggeds, whether it's a bird, a fish, or whatever. It is a consciousness, just like us.
Yes, yes it is. Yes.
And
Yeah,
so I say, let us respect the nature in all its forms and do what we can for nature.
that's
And that
beautiful.
includes all the animals in the universe. And I think somehow I think they're going to help us save this planet.
I do too. And the fact that young people are getting more involved with animals, and there's like the old school of thought and the new school of thought. And the new school of thought, actually, when I was growing up, my parents would have never spent $10,000 on a surgery on any of our animals. And today, I know people are more inclined to do that because the love that comes between an animal and a human being, it's real.
It's real.
Uh-huh.
It might be their only friend in the world.
That's true. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can even see how, like many homeless people, they try to keep their animals with them as long as they can. And for more than just protection, for companionship too. So
So true.
absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for being with us today on Observations and Perspectives and telling us about your experiences as an animal intuitive.
Oh,
We've been speaking with Barbara Mariano, who is a resident of Sacramento, California, but has been doing work in the Sacramento area with animals for many years. So, Barbara, thank you so much for being with us.
thank you, dear. It was wonderful.
Thank,
And thanks to all of your listeners. This is wonderful.
thank
Thank you.
you.